Hi folks, salam. I recently went on a healing journey, a healing retreat that involved the use of psychedelics, ayahuasca in particular, in Costa Rica. I know this is going to sound dramatic, but it changed my life in the most beautiful possible way for me right now. And I had a very, very pleasant experience. Some really, really insightful things happened to me on the ayahuasca, and I want to share a part of my experience with you. I'll try not to get into too much of the personal details, no promises, and I will be advocating for the use of psychedelics, for the use of ayahuasca in particular, if it is the right thing for you. It's not right for everybody. I cannot believe that I did not know it existed. I did not know what it's capable of doing to me, of healing me. I had heard of psychedelics, but not really ayahuasca. I knew that mushrooms existed. I kept hearing about mushrooms, but ayahuasca, oh my God, I feel like a completely new person. I'm talking about it publicly because I do think that this knowledge should be more widely, more publicly available. We should know that ayahuasca exists as one possible way for us to heal through difficult things, through the wounds that we're all carrying. Every single human, every single being is carrying wounds. And we've all experienced something bad that is having an impact on our physical bodies and also just on our life, and therefore on other people as well. And so I'm so grateful to myself that I gave it a try. I'm so proud of myself for giving it a try. I did not know what it was. I mean, I really had no idea. I read the reviews on, or some of the information on ayahuasca literally just 2 or 3 days before I went. When I was Googling healing retreats and this place called Rythmia came up, I didn't even care for the ayahuasca. I got so much clarity about my life, about my future, about my past, my present, all because of the ayahuasca. I can't believe that I have been living, though I was living the way that I was, and I can't believe this is what it's like to walk on earth, to walk in this universe as a healed person. I am so incredibly excited about the world, about my life, about my future, about who I am now and what I'm capable of now. I got to release so much negative stuff from my body, including my lack of confidence issues that I had. Apparently, I thought I was a confident woman, but it turns out I wasn't. And some things that I was still holding on to that I didn't know I was holding on to. Indigenous people tell us that when you heal on the ayahuasca, you heal not just, or when you heal in general, when you heal, you don't heal just yourself, but you also heal 7 generations before you and 7 generations after you. So the place that I went to is called Rythmia. It is an American company that is located in Costa Rica. A side note here, ayahuasca is illegal in the United States, apparently, except in one state. My suspicion is that for the reason that it's illegal is that it's incredibly effective at healing different kinds of illnesses and disorders, from PTSD to depression to anxiety to personality and attachment disorders to literal physical illnesses. It can cure. It has the power to cure certain illnesses. I think illnesses that are connected, physical illnesses, physiological illnesses that are connected to emotions, I believe that's when it can cure something. And I'll come back to that point in just a bit. You can look into it if it's something that you think might be the right thing for you. It is not going to be the right thing for everybody. Rythmia in particular, the place that I went to, they do a lot of assessments to make sure that your body can handle the ayahuasca, that it is the right thing for you at that time. You can't combine it with most other drugs. So somebody there had been taking migraine medication, or somebody was taking sleep medication, and they wouldn't let those people participate in the ayahuasca ceremonies. The point is, it is not for everybody. But if you're on the fence about it, if it's something that you've been looking into, or if you have tried so much else, everything else to heal yourself and nothing is working, then maybe ayahuasca is a thing to consider. But I'm not going to tell anybody to do it. I think it's a very personal decision, and you kind of have to know that you're ready for it. The kind of healing that I have received, I wish this healing, well, I shouldn't say this specific healing, but I wish healing on every being in the universe, in whatever forms it can come in, and from whatever sources that you believe in, because, oh my God, it is so amazing. It is so beautiful to be this healed. Anyway, I should mention, of course, that Rythmia is not sponsoring this video. They're not paying me to do this. This is a very, very personal review. So ayahuasca is a psychedelic. It is a plant medicine. Indigenous people discovered it in the depths of the Amazon, and they call it a medicine, and it is a medicine. Scientifically, the way that it works is that it activates these networks of memory and vision in your brain. And so that's why you get the kind of clarity. It feels like it gets into your subconscious in a way, and it takes out or brings to surface negative things, positive things, neutral things, things that you're holding onto that are affecting you in some way. The things that I had been suppressing, things that I'd been hiding, things that I was denying, things that I had forgotten about. There was somebody in the program who discovered something had happened to them that they did not know had happened to them. So that can happen as well, right? Because our body keeps track of the things that happen to us, the emotions and the feelings and the experiences that we have, whether or not we remember them. And our brain keeps track of that. And so the ayahuasca, the DMT in the ayahuasca, the DMT is a chemical that is it's the primary ingredient in ayahuasca, and our bodies already produce the DMT too. And so my understanding is that the DMT is the one that's doing all the work. And when the DMT from the ayahuasca gets combined with the DMT in our bodies, in our brains, this magic happens. And so you get this clarity, like revelations after revelations after revelations. And the program calls those miracles. A lot of different feelings and a lot of different things can happen. Things can come out when you're on the ayahuasca. So for me, for example, I felt out-of-body experiences. I felt completely dissociated from my body at one of the nights, not every night. The ceremonies happen for 4 nights. But the best part for me was this. The bad things that came out, they also got released. And it felt like they got released from my body, from my system. And that, for me, is where the healing happened. And when the healing happened, when the release happened, and the healing happened with that, I felt different, and I could tell that I was different now, and I felt a kind of peace and calm that I have never in my life felt before. It was amazing. I remember just the whole time I was thanking myself for doing this. I was so happy that I was doing it. So the ayahuasca is a drink, and it is provided in a small cup like this by Rythmia. Again, I went to Rythmia. They serve a lot of it. There's a whole medicine table, and the healers bring a lot of the medicine with them, and you can take 1 cup. They'll announce the first one. Then you take 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever many you'd like, but the healers are watching and they're assessing you to make sure that you're capable of taking more and that you should be taking more. In my case, when they would ask me questions and I would give them the answers, they would also sometimes bless me before they gave me the medicine. I teach religions for a living. I'm a religious person. I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in the value of all religions, in the validity of all religions. And so every time they would bless me, I would be so grateful because I want all of those blessings. There are no side effects to the ayahuasca. Absolutely no side effects. As far as I understood that, they kept telling us that. Now, in terms of taste, it's no virgin pina colada, which is my favorite drink in the universe, but it is amazing at its job. It's really excellent at doing its job. And when you take the ayahuasca, you purge. You may purge. I shouldn't say you definitely purge, because some people get what is called a nada. You just fall asleep from the time that you take the medicine until the end, until the ceremony ends. So the purging that happens can happen in many different ways. You might purge through vomiting, which is very, very common. Through diarrhea, also very, very common. Nobody that I know of, the first week at least that I was there, pooped in their pants. I know that that's what a lot of people are scared of I don't want to do it because I don't want to poop my pants. But if it happened to anyone, I don't know about it, because you're so focused on your own process, you're in your own journey, and you just tell one of the assistants and one of the healers that happened to you, and they'll take care of you. Anyway, so the purging, so diarrhea, vomiting, sweating, crying, screaming, I had a lot of that. Laughing, giggling, I had a lot of that. And so much more. The purging can happen in many different ways because your body's releasing that particular wound, that particular trauma. And none of that is normal stuff. The vomit isn't normal. It's not the same kind of vomit that you do that you go through when you're sick. My understanding is that it's the emotions and the feelings and the experiences that are being released. And so when you're purging through vomiting, it can get really loud. Like sometimes I would scream before I vomited. And I could feel the problem being released. I got to release things that I didn't know I was still holding on to. They tell us that you can ask the ayahuasca to show you what it is that you're purging, or to tell you, to basically for you to get some insight into what it is that you're releasing. I started asking the question, what am I purging? What am I releasing? And I started getting answers. And I would get this insight, like, here's your answer, this is what you're purging. And I would just, my relationship with myself changed. It became so positive, so much more positive. And I remember just holding myself and going, wow, I did not know that I was holding on to that. I did not know that that was still inside me. I didn't know that it had caused me this much damage. That particular thing that just got released had caused me that much damage. I was telling a friend of mine about how one of the things that the ayahuasca can do and did for a lot of people, not for everybody, is that it can heal some of your physical illnesses, right? I just mentioned this earlier. And you can read about people's experiences with the ayahuasca, like what it healed for them, like physical illnesses like cancer even, right? Or somebody might get their hearing back, or somebody gets their vision back. I know it sounds weird, but I now understand how that happens. So my friend who's Muslim said, oh, like physical illnesses that are connected to emotions, like how the prophet Yaqub or Jacob in the Bible, father of Joseph, how he got his eyesight back when he was reunited with Joseph, or when he got Joseph's shirt, right? And I hadn't made that connection, but yes, because once the emotional and the psychological sources of your trauma are revealed to you, or they're just exposed to you, and then they're released, because remember, it's not just that you discover things or you see things, it's that you see things and then they get released as well, for me, definitely. That release then can result in an incredibly beautiful kind of healing that may involve getting your physical health back. It's kind of a known fact at this point in psychology, in diseases, in trauma, in illnesses, that everything is connected. The emotional health is connected to the physical health, which is connected to the mental health. So you can't separate the mind from the body, and you can't separate emotions from the physical impact that they will have on your body, on your health. So it's all making sense to me how the ayahuasca ends up doing its job. So a lot of people ask me how I chose this place, right? As I mentioned, I was desperate to heal, and I just literally Googled healing retreats, and I found Rythmia. And I remember thinking, because it's so expensive, there's no way I can ever afford it. But alhamdulillah, I managed to find the money for it. I managed to do it, and I'm so glad I tried it, even though it was expensive. I have since learned that they have discounts. So if you want to go, if you know you want to go, or if you're thinking about going, let me know, and we can talk about some of the discounts that they have. So the place Rythmia is so beautiful. It is so calm. It has such a soothing atmosphere to it. And I feel like every single thing, every little and every big thing there is designed, and it's positioned exactly where it is and exactly how it is, because it is proven to be effective. It is proven to help you. The staff was so beautiful. They were so kind. They were so supportive. The healers, the shamans. I know that the word shaman is problematic for a lot of people, so I'm going to try to use the word healer primarily. But the healers and the assistants to the healers, because they have a lot of assistants as well, they were so down to earth. They would talk to us before the ceremonies. They would talk to us outside of the ceremonies, after the ceremonies, if you wanted to talk to them. They were available to bless us at any point during the ceremony. I remember I had some very difficult things come up for me one of the nights, and I would just ask for a shaman, and I would say, I need a blessing. Like I can't handle this thing that I'm discovering or that I'm processing. And they would bless me. A lot of my nights were very, very difficult. Like so much stuff came out that I was not ready to deal with. And I would just ask for a healer, for an assistant to come help me, just sit with me, and they would just come and sit with me. And then they would coach me as I was releasing something or as I was working through something. And then this one time, one of my healers was with me, and people were just so nice to me. Like they were so kind. We got to bond so much, and it was so beautiful. But one of them is with me. She walks me up to the shaman to get my second or third whatever cup, And they asked me if I needed a bucket in case I wanted to vomit. And I was like, nope, I'm good. And I was learning to trust my body and listen to my body. So if I felt like something was coming, I would say yes. Like, I really got to have a new relationship with my body, like listening to my body, trusting my intuition. These things that I've struggled with before, oh my God, I got better at it. And so I didn't take the bucket with me. And I'm there. I get my second cup or third or whatever cup. I get my cup. I drink it. And instantly, as I turn around to go to my mattress, instantly I vomited. But the magic was that my healer had a bucket with her, just for me to like vomit in. And I was like, how did you know? And she was like, we know these things. And then there's the people that I met who were also on their healing journey. Some of the most amazing, most wonderful people, most beautiful people that I've ever met in my life. I got to meet people that I want to keep in my life for the rest of my life. Because keep in mind, these are people who are just as desperate as you are, as I was, to heal, right? People who are at a similar point in their journey, in their life. They're like, okay, something isn't working for me. I want to heal, and I'm going to take this risk and heal this way. And so we were vulnerable with each other. We got to share our stories with each other in a way that we probably never have with anyone else. And we felt completely safe doing so. There was no judgment. I got to see men being vulnerable in a way that I have never seen them before. I got to see a dramatic difference from day one when I first saw them to the last day that they were there. And you could see it on their face. You could tell in their body. Their energy was different now. And I got to see them being emotionally intimate with each other. They got to hug each other and say I love you to each other in this very incredibly genuine and beautiful way, and mean it. It felt so, so real. It was the healthiest masculinity I've ever seen, probably ever in my life. Like a collective kind of healthy masculinity. I've never seen that before. And it was exactly what I needed to see at this point in my life. So I'm so proud of all of the men who went. I'm so proud of all of the men who keep going. I'm so proud of men who know that, okay, something isn't working. I want to heal. I want to be a better person. I'm going to try this. And I'm so grateful to them, because every healed person is making a difference in the world by healing themselves. So it's a week-long program. From Saturday to Saturday or Sunday to Sunday, you decide. I did 2 weeks because I was not able to participate in the ceremony on Thursday, only the Thursday ceremony, because they use something called yahe, which is a different kind of ayahuasca. It is more purgatory, they say. And so it's not allowed for people who are menstruating. I was menstruating that week, and I was really sad that I could not participate. I mean, I had the hardest time letting it go. You can imagine, I teach religion, I study religion and feminism and gender, and I have a whole video on menstruation and religion, or fasting, praying, etc. And I'm very critical of when people say that because you're menstruating you can't pray, or because you're menstruating you're not allowed to fast, or whatever. And so I was not okay with this. It felt exclusionary to me. So I had very strong feelings about it, and it feelings that I thought I was working through that week kept coming out, and I realized that meant that I was not done. My journey wasn't finished, and so I decided to stay another week. Instead of fighting the system, instead of fighting, I decided to just accept it, because there's nothing I could do about it, and I accepted it. And I trusted my healers, I trusted the medicine, I trusted them that they must have done their research, they know what they're doing. And I decided to just make peace with it, and I stayed a second week. So if you can't do the yahe on Thursday, there's an alternative ceremony called the moon ceremony. And that night was really beautiful too. It wasn't ayahuasca, but it was a couple of hours, and there was meditation. It was me and another person who was also on her menstruation, and then 2 female healers. There was something called rape that we used. You inhale that, and it's a healing thing. And we did a couple of exercises that were really beautiful, very therapeutic exercises. And there was a conversation on, sort of a lesson on how indigenous folks deal with their menstruation, and just indigenous folks' relationships with the womb. I will say that because of the ayahuasca, my relationship with my womb, with my period, my uterus, has changed in a good way. But a lot of that happened for me the first week that I was there. outside of the moon ceremony. I was already learning things about my period and my womb that I hadn't considered before. And so the moon ceremony was not completely transformative for me, but it was still helpful. And I really do appreciate that Rythmia has an alternative space for people who can't participate in the yahe ceremony, so you don't feel completely excluded. They tell you to focus on feelings, not on thoughts. Like, don't think, feel. And I love this. I really, really love this. I mean, I think that thinking is necessary in certain contexts, and then feeling is necessary in other contexts. So they have these insightful questions that they have all over, especially in bathrooms and in the maloka, in the giant room where the healing happens. And it's really important because, to me, it's been important because it reminds me, those questions remind me to be mindful of my feelings, of my thoughts, of my actions, of the way that I interact with other people, the way that I treat other people. They ask, for example, that whatever it is that you're feeling in that moment, like at Rythmia, when you're there, they ask you, do you feel this thing? Do you feel this way? Or does this feeling ever come up in your normal life outside of Rythmia? The answer should always be yes. And then they say, okay, when was the first time that you remember this, feeling like this? And you're on the ayahuasca most days, and so you're a lot more likely to remember things that you haven't remembered, that you can't remember outside of the ayahuasca. And so you're probably more capable of figuring out when you felt that way for the first time. And then the final question is, what has this made you? Who have you become as a result of this? And so since then, I've been so much more aware of my feelings. Whenever a feeling comes up, negative or positive, I sit with myself and I hold myself and I try to process it in that same way with those questions. So of course you can imagine then when I told the coaches there that I was not feeling good about not being able to participate in the ceremony, the yahe ceremony, because I wasn't allowed to because I was on my period. They asked me, well, when was the first time you felt this? And what has this made you? And the question especially of what has this made you? Or who has this made you become? Oh my God. I don't think I was ready to accept what I had become or who I had become as a result of feelings that I had. I'd never thought about that before. I'm going to show you what the schedule looked like. Okay. The stuff in orange is mandatory classes, and the things that are not in orange are optional. They have a spa, a really beautiful spa. They have a sauna. They have a cold plunge. Oh my gosh. I tried it for the first time. Some of the guys there were doing it for 8 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes, and I could not do it for that long. So I get in the cold plunge, and I tell my friends, I'm only going to do 10 seconds. Like, I'm going to, keep the bar low for now, just 10 seconds. And they're all counting, but they're at a different, they're on a different number. And so Simon, one of my dear friends there, he's like, let's start over. And I'm like, I think they're on number 6 at that point. And so he's like, let's start over. And I was dying. It was so cold. I mean, it's ice cold water. And it was killing me. And so when he said, let's start over, they did. They started over. I believe that I did more than 20 or I did more than 15 seconds. But they started counting again all over from 1, and they went up until 10. And I was so proud of myself because I set a goal and I met it. And I was freezing after those 10, 20 seconds. But it was so worth it. It was so beautiful. They have a mud bath. They have a beautiful pool. They have a lot of different, they have a gym. There are yoga classes, but there are also, their breathwork, the breathwork workshops are so healing. Because the breathwork stuff is one of the many things that you can take with you outside of Rythmia, right? Because they teach you how to do breathwork. They teach you the different breathing techniques out there. Oh, they also have a colonic cleanse. There were 2 that are provided. I recommend both of them if you can handle it. It was my first time doing one. But it was such a great experience, such an interesting experience. So I mentioned earlier that the program uses the language of miracles and intentions, right? The insights and the revelations that you get, the program calls those miracles. I wasn't a fan of the language of miracles before I went, but now because my perception changed. I had a huge change in perception, and I now appreciate it because it works. And it is a miracle. Healing is a miraculous thing that happens. It's helped me become a more intentional person. I have a new relationship with intentions. But before you take the medicine, they'll prepare you for the medicine. And one of the things I keep highlighting is you want to have intentions. You want to set intentions before you take the medicine. They give you 3 intentions to start with. You want to avoid having intentions that are limiting or limited, that are very narrow. Like don't ask for things like, who should I marry, or where should I live, or what kind of job should I have? Those are actually really, really insignificant, very, very trivial things in the larger scheme of things. So they give you 3 intentions to start with that are very general. Most likely you'll get your answers, the questions you're asking about, where should I live, what kinds of jobs should I have, who should I marry this person, etc. Those questions can get answered through these bigger questions. So the first intention they give you is, show me who I have become. The second one is, merge me back with my soul at all costs. And the third one is, heal my heart. The idea of these intentions is this: you have become something that you were not supposed to be. And the reason that happened is that at some point in your life, you were separated from your soul, from your higher self. You experienced a wound, you became wounded, you experienced a negative thing. Something happened that your body received and experienced as a negative thing. Whether or not it was meant to be a negative thing is irrelevant. But you received it as a negative thing because you were a kid, you were a baby, you were a child. You didn't know that you can't read people's intentions. And so you end up learning that, oh, I'm not supposed to be my way. I'm supposed to be something else because I'm not safe being who I am. Maybe it's psychologically safe or emotionally safe or physically safe. And so therefore you become something else. You become separated from who you were meant to be, from your soul, from your higher self, from your self with a capital S, as many religions understand it. That is why the second intention is, merge me back with my soul at all costs. So when you become separated from your soul, you become something else. And now on the ayahuasca, you can discover what it is that you have become. I got to see that. This theory, this idea of the separation of who you are meant to be, who you were supposed to be, and who you became as a result of a trauma, probably. There are scholars and therapists and psychologists that I listen to who are saying similar things. So for example, I listen to Richard Schwartz a lot, who is founder of a therapy model known as internal family systems. And he argues that we have many, many different parts within us. The ugliest part of us, the things that make us do terrible things, that make us think terrible things, or the parts of us that overreact to something, or the part of us that hurt people or ourselves, and so on. There are many parts of them, and he gives them names like the exiles or the firefighter and so on. He believes that those parts emerge, they're born in a context of trauma. They are born in response to traumas that we experience. And they exist to protect us. And this is a theory that is becoming more well-known, and I'm seeing parts of it in many other different therapy models that I'm familiar with, that I'm studying, and I feel like that's kind of what Rythmia is also teaching, right? That we have different parts within us, and one part of us is hidden. The original part of us is hidden. And this other part of us, the one that's active, the one that's making all of these decisions, is doing it out of fear. It's doing it in response to trauma. We became something that we weren't meant to be because we got hurt. We learned not to be who we were meant to be. We learned to silence ourselves, to suppress our emotions, our feelings. And so we become dissociated from our soul. So in some way, everybody is dissociated. I know that's a technical term. I don't want to use it lightly. But we're all separated from our higher self. All of the healing I keep mentioning happens in a giant room that they call the maloka, which is what indigenous people call the healing place, right? The specific place where the ayahuasca or the medicine ceremonies take place. The men and the women were separated, so men on one side, women on a different side, but we're all still in this giant space. And the healers are all there. There's music, live and recorded. There's smoke. The medicine, all of it works together to do the healing. And I loved all of it at all times, except one night, one moment, like a brief moment, I could not stand the smoke. And I wanted to run away from it. And they tell us that you should not leave the room, the maloka, when you want to run away. When you feel like you really need to run away, that's when you stay, because something incredible is taking place at that moment. And when you want to just get out because you feel like it, not because you need to, that's when you want to go outside. What I learned was the ways that nature, right, different layers of nature, like the smoke and the plant, the nature outside and the music, all of it is working together, like really, really together to heal me. And it's amazing because indigenous folks have clearly done their research to know how long the medicine should be in your body and how long it can stay in your body. And so I feel like almost all of the days that I did the ceremony ended exactly sometime after my process was finished. That felt magical to me. There was only one night where it didn't feel like my process had finished and the ceremony ended, and I was frustrated. But I had to remember that it wasn't done. I still had 2 more nights, and those next 2 nights is when my process did get completely. I'm so glad I stayed the second week, because that's when the things that I went to heal, stuff that happened to me a few months ago, is exactly what got healed. So I want to tell you a little bit about my actual experience on the ayahuasca. This is where I might share some weird things. I might share some personal things. I'll try not to, but we'll see. I don't know what I'm going to say yet. But the Monday, it was my first time on the ayahuasca. And it was really challenging for me. But the reason it was challenging was the issue that I was dealing with. And it was the same issue that I went there to work on. That happened a few months ago to me. And I purged through vomiting so much. I mean, I was violently vomiting, to the point where the healers, 2 of the healers came and they gave me water. You're not supposed to have water once you have the ayahuasca, but they can make exceptions, and they made an exception for me. They gave me water. And I remember as I was drinking the water, like it was a lot of water apparently, and so, or it felt like a lot of water. And I'm drinking, and I thought it was gonna finish. And I kept thinking, okay, I have very little left and it's gonna finish, and it wasn't finishing. And I remember saying out loud to them, oh wow, this is a lot of water, this is not ending. And I had such an incredible insight that night about my scarcity mentality, my belief that I don't deserve things, that I don't deserve that much water or that much of anything, that I'm not capable of getting that much of anything. Wow, I had to really sit with that. And thankfully I had my journal with me and I took a lot of notes that night. And then my second night, the Tuesday, it was the most painful night of the history of my existence. It was so hard. It was so painful. I am going to mention something potentially triggering, so trigger warning. For the next probably few minutes, I will be talking about sexual abuse. I was sexually abused as a child from the ages of 6 through 11. I knew that this had happened to me, so this was not a revelation for me. But what was a revelation is the way that the abuse stayed in my body all this time. How the abuse shaped certain decisions that I have made in my life, from career choices to the way that I fight injustices and harm and oppression and abuse, to the way that I fight, like just the way that I do my work, my activism. I had no idea about most of that. I was abused by my Quran teacher, the man who was supposed to be teaching me the word of God, the most sacred word of God in Islam, the holy book of Islam, the Quran. I had already known that affected my relationship with religion, with religious patriarchy, with, of course, with abuse and everything, with all men in positions of power, especially with religious men in positions of power. So I knew that part. But I did not know a lot of the other things that showed up for me that night. When I was seeing what the abuse had done to me, I remember saying at one point, no, I'm not accepting this. I want to hold on to this because I am so sad for myself. And I need to accept this sadness, and I need to realize it. I need to acknowledge that this is the impact that it had on me, that the abuse had on me. I did not know that. And then at some point, I was ready to let it go. And when the release happened, my God, I feel like I woke up at some point and there was this tremendous calm all around me. And I forgot something really important actually. This is really, really important, okay? At one point, my healer who was next to me said, "Sister, you're being very loud." And I didn't know what I was being loud for. I didn't know how I was being loud. Like, was I screaming? Was I talking? Was I giggling? What was I doing? And I thanked him profusely, and I said, "Thank you so much for telling me. Thank you so much for letting me know. I'm glad to know, and I'll be quiet." And then I said to him, "I wonder what that was." I was like, "I wonder what was I processing? What was I dealing with?" And then I made my face changed. I know what face I was making in that moment. The shape, like my lips changed as well. And I said, "I know what that was." And I started saying it out loud. And I don't know how loud I was. I must not have been very loud because they didn't take me outside. But I said, "That was a sexual abuse. He abused me for a really long time, from the ages of 6 to 11. And then I laid back on my mattress, and at some point, I started screaming. I didn't feel it. I didn't hear anything, but they came, the medic and like other people came, and they were like, "We're gonna take you outside on the mattress." It's one thing when they take you, like they're like, "Okay, let's walk you gently outside." It's a whole different thing when they're like, "You stay on the mattress and we're gonna take you outside like this." And the next day, a friend of mine was telling me that it was the most horrific screams that he had ever heard in his life. And that made me really sad for myself. I'm so glad I know. I'm so glad I know I screamed, because it was the first time in my life that I was screaming about what had happened to me, that I'd cried about what had happened to me. And so when I was taken outside, when I was on the mattress, they would come every now and then to check in on me and make sure I was okay, if I needed any coaching, if I needed to process anything, and if I was ready to come back inside. But I remember that night, I screamed at people that I love. "Why did I not feel safe enough with you to tell you that this had happened to me? Why didn't you protect me?" And I was screaming at people. And then I got to see what other impacts it had on me. A lot of my spiritual abuse stuff, because there's a sexual abuse that is obviously a form of spiritual abuse, but there's also the spiritual religious abuse, the manipulation that you go through when you're a religious person, the way that religion is used against us, right? To make us do certain things and believe certain things and think certain things. That got released that night. At some point, I remember looking to my left, and because my inner child was there. She was sitting on this mattress, and I remember looking over and thinking, because I don't know if I said it out loud, but I was thinking, I hope one of the healers goes to her, because she needs help. She needs to be comforted. And I remember how she was sitting, and I remember where she was looking, and when I wished somebody would go help her, I thought, I can't, because I can't function. I can't get up to help her. She needs a hug. She needs to be reminded that she's beautiful and she's loved. She's safe now. She clearly wasn't when she was 7. And the kind of connection that I got with my inner child, now I know, I feel like when I am facing something difficult and painful, something painful comes up, I know how to address it in a way that is healing for the little child in me, my inner child, who is suffering was suffering in so many ways. And it never occurred to me to get in touch with her, right? So what Dick Shores argues about the part of us that gets created in a time of crisis, in a time of trauma, in a time of deep pain, who then needs to just be reminded that I'm safe now, or you're safe now. I can take care of myself now. We don't have to fight that way anymore. We can now fight to thrive, not to fight to survive. I saw that my fights against injustices were rooted in anger, in resentment, in bitterness, in hatred. But I thought this whole time that I was fighting out of love for the world, out of love for humanity, for justice, etc. But now I know, because I really got to see that night how I can be fighting. Now I know that my fights in the future now against patriarchy and other injustices are going to be out of love for humanity, out of love for the world, out of love for justice, a commitment to justice and peace and the thrival and the healing of humanity. So that was Tuesday. And I'm not going to tell you what every single day was like, but the Wednesday night is famously, it's called the Divine Feminine Night. And so they say it's gentle, definitely gentler, it's compassionate. And they also told me, one of the healers was like, if you're afraid of the medicine being painful, like if it being painful like last night, just tell the medicine that you want her to be gentle with you that night. So that Wednesday then was a lot better for me. And I kept telling myself, this is challenging, but it's not painful. It felt to me like somebody was massaging me, my stomach. And at one point, the medicine, I'm gonna use this weird language. I know it's gonna be really weird for people who haven't done ayahuasca, but I believe it was the medicine doing its job. And so at one point, I tell them, like, the medicine is showing me something. I see an image of something that I really, really wanted, okay? And I said, oh, no. I know where you're going with this. I'm not accepting that. That's not true, is what I kept saying. And I feel like whoever was massaging my tummy, like, so I imagine this like older woman, like a grandmother, massaging my tummy. And she gently moved to a different part of my stomach, as though to say, oh, you're not ready for that part to heal yet. So let me go to a different part. We're going to come back to that first part later. This is this thing that I really wanted and I thought was great for me, and I was craving it and I was longing for it, etc., etc. Like, I had a really hard time when it left. And I got to see why that thing was not good for me. And I remember crying, like, are you serious? And it got to show me actual, literal scenes from my life of when I knew deep inside, the thing wasn't good for me, and I kept it anyway. Eventually, I think I don't know if I asked to be shown this, but at some point I even got a visual of what my future would have been like with this thing. And and because it was like some 70-80% of that Wednesday process was on this particular issue, I remember saying, oh, so that's why you're spending so much time with this issue, because I held on to it for so long, for such a long time. And then it got released. And this one got released in a very different way than the sexual abuse got released. This one got released almost like like when you're getting a massage and then the knots that you have in your body physically that get released with a really good massage. Well, that's how this particular issue got resolved. And when I woke up from it, I was so grateful. I was so grateful to know this. It was amazing. So that's all the stuff that I wanted to share with you about my journey on the ayahuasca, my experience at Rythmia. Again, it was very pleasant. If you're on the fence about it, please, you're welcome to talk to me. You can email me. My email address is public. If you are inspired by this video to go to Rythmia, please let them know that I sent you, or talk to me, because they have a really awesome referral discount, or they have some discounts for people who refer people. So if you're going to go anyway, please let me know so I can connect you with them. And I do want to continue talking about ayahuasca. So in a different video, I will talk about some of the lessons and the insights that I learned on the ayahuasca, because I think that those lessons and those insights might be helpful for other people as well, because I just saw this stuff I really wish I knew before, and I'm so glad I know now. So thanks so much for watching. Salam.